Ayo.
Mai bagi PPT buhan ka, Ma'am.
Wah, gimana ya maksudnya? Ini itu disebutnya.
Kata L bisa dimulai aja.
Ya, kita nunggu moderator membuka.
Oh, langsung ya.
Titik 3 Salma. Nah,
Langsung aja Kamanda.
Bisa aja. Nah. Bentar loh. Ya langsung jalan. Ini sudah di record kah?
Stella sudah kah?
Sudah ku record.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, let us thank God for the opportunity to gather here today. So we're going to continue our discuss about the book review. So my name is Amanda Kneltafir Ramadhani, and I will be your moderator for this session. Without any further ado, I would like to invite our presenter, the Group 2, to deliver the book review entitled Translation, Theory, and Practice. And the time is yours.
Okay, thank you for moderator for giving opportunity. So, don't waste any time, let's start. So, the book, penerjemahan, teori, dan praktik, views translation as a complex and responsibility intellectual activity. Translation is not has been a simply replacing words, but as a meaning-based process that considers language, social and cultural context, and communicative purpose. Therefore, the book provides a strong theoretical foundation and shows that translation always involves thinking, interpretation, and decision-making. So, Chapter 1, the definition and process of translation. Chapter 1 explains translations as a systematic step-by-step process. The author emphasized that the translation quality depends on how well each stage is carried out. The stage include understanding the source text, analyzing meaning, and expressing meaning in the target language. So, first, translator must fully understand the source text, including its message, purpose, and intended audience. Second, to analyze meaning by considering context, structure, and cultural elements. When a lead translator expressing the meaning naturally in the target language, focusing on clarity and readability rather than word-for-word accuracy. So, Chapter 1 emphasized that a good translation must follow the linguistic rules and usage conversation of the target language. Sentence structure, word choice, and style need to be adjusted so that the translated text sound natural, fluent, and easy to understand. So this highlight the translator role as a reader in the target language rather than merely a copier of the search text. Argumentatively, this stage demonstrates that faithfulness in translation doesn't mean preserving this core language form, but rather maintaining the meaning and function of the text. As a successful translation is one that delivers the same message to the target audience, even if the linguistic form differs. Chapter 2. Next, in Chapter 2, Ideology, Method, and Technique of Translation. So, Chapter 2 focuses on decision-making in translation. It introduces translation ideology, method, and techniques as a factor that guides translator choices. Translators may prioritize either the source language or the target language, depending on the purpose of the text. This chapter also explained that method helps maintain consistency across the text, while techniques are used to solve specific translation problems. Overall, it showed that translations choice are strategic and intentional, not random. So, chapter 2, from an argumentative standpoint, the chapter asserts that all translation ideology is absolutely right and wrong. The choice of ideology should depend on the translation purpose and text type. For example, academic text may require a higher degree or faithfulness the source language, whereas popular or literary texts often prioritize reader comfort. Thus, translation ideology becomes the foundation for all subsequent translation decision. Chapter 3, Meaning in Translation. So, Chapter 3 is discuss meaning as a multi-layered concept. Meaning in translation include lexical, grammatical, contextual, textual, social-cultural, and idiomatic meaning. The chapter highlights the translator must understand these layers to avoid misunderstanding and miscommunication. It concludes that a translation may be grammatically correct but still ineffective if it fails to convey contextual and cultural meaning. Chapter 3 is argumentative perspective. The chapter 3 concludes that deep understanding of multiple types of meaning is the key of successful translation. A translation that is linguistically correct but fails to convey cultural and contextual meaning is considered ineffective. So, overall, chapter 1 to 3 demonstrate that translation is a systematic, theoretical, and practical process. The book helps students understanding that translation involves the text comprehension, strategic decision-making, and deep interpretation of meaning. In the context of English-Indonesian translation course, this book is highly relevant because it provides students with an analytical and professional framework. Students not only learn how to translate but also understand the rationale behind each translation choice, enable them to produce translations that are academically responsible and communicatively effective. Maybe that's all from me. Next will be delivered from my friend.
Okay, I will present chapter 4, Difficulties in Translation. In chapter 4, the author explained that translation is not as simple as replacing words from English into Indonesian. We need to understand the meaning, sentence structure, style, and cultural background of the text. First, there are differences in language structure. English and Indonesian have different sentence pattern if we translate word by word. The result often sounds stiff and unnatural. Therefore, translator need to adjust the sentence structure to fit the norm of the target language. Second, there are issues of meaning and content. A single word can have different meaning depending on the situation. If we rely only on dictionary meaning without considering the content, the translation can be incorrect. In addition, idioms or fixed expression cannot be translated literally. Third, there are different in style. Academic texts, new article, and literary work have different style. Translating a new article is clearly different from translating a short story or a poem. Translators need to adapt their style so that the translation matches the type of the original text. Next, there are cultural differences. Sometimes certain terms or practice in the source language do not have direct agreement in the target language. In this case, translator need to find a right way to convey the meaning so that it can still be understood by a reader from a different cultural background. This chapter also explains the causes of translator error, such as limited language proficiency, lack of subject matter knowledge, afference on dictionaries, and insufficient attention to contents. Touch, example, and exercise. Students are encouraged to record common translation problems and learn how to improve their translation. Overall, Chapter 4 shows that translation is a complex process that requires deep understanding, not merely word replacement. Next, Chapter 5, Translation and Language Teaching. Chapter 5, Discussion Translation as part of the language learning process in the classroom. It explained that the goal of translation in language learning is not only to produce correct translation, but also to help students understand text, expand their vocabulary, and learn sentence structure in a foreign language. This chapter explains that translation should focus on transferring meaning, message, and context rather than translating word for word. Therefore, students need to understand the source text first before translating it. In addition, Chapter 5 outlines the strength of translation, starting from understanding the source text, analyzing its meaning, transferring it into the target language, and revising the translation with this strength. The translation process becomes more thematic and less random. In classroom practice, students are usually given short translation tasks and their translation are discussed together. Different variants of translation can be compared and students discuss which version is more appropriate and why. Here, the role of the teacher is not only to judge right or wrong, but to guide student way of thinking during the translation process. This chapter shows the translation can be an effective tools for language learning. However, to become truly proficient translator, students still need extensive practice, exposure to various text types, and experience translating longer and more complex texts. Okay, thank you. Next chapter 6.
Okay. Chapter 6, the profile of a competent translator. This chapter defines what makes someone a professional translator. It emphasizes that speaking two languages is just the beginning. True competence is a complex system of sub-skills. First, foundation, the four language skills. A translator must be a master of listening, speaking, reading, and writing in both the source language, SL, and the target language, TL. Second, the PACTE model, multidimensional concept competence. The book highlights the competence is a system of sub-competencies including 1. Strategic, the ability to plan and
Ya ulang aja Cira.
dari mana ulangnya, dari yang sebelum chapter 7 nih Kak?
Iya loh. Dari situ.
Ya dari situ.
Dari maaf.
Gak apa-apa.
Chapter 7, Measuring Success through TQA. Once a translator has the competence, they must ensure the output is of high quality. This chapter focuses on translation quality assessment, or TQA, through three main pillars. First, accuracy. Goal, ensuring the message from the source text is preserved in the target text. Key concept, it's not just about words, it's about semantic and pragmatic equivalence. The text discusses NIDA's dynamic equivalence, where the message should have the same impact on the new reader as it did on the original. Second, adaptability. Goal, making the translation feel natural and at home in the target culture. Key concept, a translation is acceptable if it follows the grammatical rules and social norms of the target language. If a translation sounds stiff or foreign, it fails the acceptability test. Third, readability. Goal, ensuring the reader can understand the text easily and without confusion. Barriers to readability. Linguistic, use of rare words, foreign terms, or ambiguous phrases. Structural, sentences that are too long, complex, or grammatically incomplete. To summarize both chapters, the book teaches that first, competence is the input, the skills you have. Second, quality, accuracy, acceptability, readability is the output, the result you provide. A professional translator uses their competence to bridge the gap between two cultures, ensuring the final product is accurate to the author, acceptable to the target culture, and readable for the audience. The exercises provided in these chapters, such as translating relative causes with who's whom and translating personal letters, serve to test these exact qualities. For example, translating a letter to grandmother requires high acceptability, tone, and culture. Translating a sentence about fluoride requires high accuracy, technical terminology. Okay. After this, my friends will continue.
Okay, I'm going to continue our presentation. So I'm going to talk about chapter 8, 9, and 10. So these chapters are actually connected because they show how translation becomes more complex step by step. So we move from understanding cultural terms to learning translation strategies, and finally to analyzing translation at deeper level. So let's start with chapter 8. So this chapter on cultural categories and religious terminology in translation. The main idea here is that language and culture cannot be separated. When we translate, we are not only transferring the word, but also transferring the cultural meaning. Some words are deeply rooted in culture. For example, traditional food, clothing, festivals, social systems, or even gestures. And these words may not have exact equivalents in another language. If we translate them literally, the meaning can become strange or incomplete. So this chapter explains Newmark's 5 cultural categories, and these categories help us to classify cultural terms before translating them. They include ecology, material culture, social culture, organization, and gestures or habits. This classification is helpful because it trained us to analyze first before translating. So instead of translating automatically, we ask, what type of cultural word is this? Does it need explanation? Should I borrow the term or should I adapt it? So yeah. Another important discussion in this chapter is religious translation. Religious terms are very sensitive because they relate to belief and faith. And concepts like heaven, hell, angels, religions, rituals, or scared objects carry deep spiritual meaning. If we translate them carelessly, we might change their meaning or even offend readers. That's why this chapter emphasized that translators must be respectful, careful, and cultural aware. So overall, chapter 8 teaches us that a good translator must be bicultural, not only bilingual, and we need to understand the culture behind the language. Okay, now moving to chapter 9. After understanding the cultural issues, this chapter focuses more on practical translation techniques. It explains different procedures we can use when translating. Some of the procedures including borrowing, literal translation, transposition, modulation, equivalence, and adaptation. For example, borrowing
means we keep the original words from the source language, and this is useful when there is no equivalent in the target language. And literal translation means translating words for words, but this only works on the structures of both language are similar. And sometimes we need modulation, which means changing the perspective, or transposition, which means changing the grammatical structure. And the important message here is that translation is a process of decision making, and there is no single perfect strategies. The translator must analyze the context, the purpose of the text, and the target audience. For example, translating a legal document requires precious and formal language, but translating a novel requires creativity to maintain emotion and styles. So chapter 9 shows us the technical tools of translation. It teaches how to solve problems when direct translation does not work. Okay, finally, chapter 10 take us to a more advanced level. So this chapter moves beyond individual words and sentences. It focuses on discourse level translation, and that means we must look at the whole text, not just part of it. And we need to consider coherence, tone, register, audience, and purpose. So a good translation should feel natural and logical as a whole. And this chapter also introduced the idea that translation is not neutral. So translators may be influenced by social, culture, or political context. So even a small word choices can affect how readers to understand the text. For example, translating a political or historical text requires extra care because word choices and can shape perception. So translation is not just technical skill, but also an ethical responsibility. And translator must think critically and justify their choices. So in chapter 10, encourage us to become more effective translator, and we should always ask ourselves, why did I choose these words? Or does it match the purpose of the text? Or is it appropriate for the target audience? If we look at the chapter 8 to 10 together, we can see a clear development that chapter 8 focuses on cultural and religious understanding. Chapter 9 focuses on practical translation strategies. Chapter 10 focuses on deeper analysis and critical thinking. And these chapters show that translation is not simple, and it requires language ability, culture awareness, strategy, and responsibility. So in conclusion, a professional translator is not only someone who knows two languages. A good translator must also understand the culture, use strategies carefully, analyze context, and think critically. That is all for me. I give it back to moderator.
Okay. Thank you so much for Group 2 for presenting the review. Now, I'm going to open the Q&A session. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or just directly open your mic to give the questions. Okay, there is Alif. You can give your questions.
Okay, thank you so much, the moderator, for the opportunity. So I would like to ask a question for Group 2. My name is Muhammad Aliran Ramadan from Group 4. So the book discusses acceptability and readability as criteria for translation quality. And from my experience reading translated narrative texts such as novels, I sometimes feel that the translation does not read smoothly and feels difficult to process, even though the meaning may be accurate. So, according to the book, how should translators balance readability and acceptability in translating literary works so the text feels
Okay, thank you, Alip, for the question. Now, from group 2, do you guys want to answer it or question? Okay. I think we have to wait for group 2 to answer the questions. Now, anyone would like to give the questions? Okay, Fitria.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fitria from Group 3. So my question is, the book talk about translation evaluation, but can translation really be just as good or bad, depend on the reader opinion? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fitri. I think Kiki wants to give questions.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The question is, according to the book, what factors most frequently cause difficulties in translation? Are these difficulties mainly caused by language difference or cultural difference?
Okay, thank you, Kiki. Now we give the opportunity to group 2 to answer the questions from our questioners.
Okay, let me answer the question from Ali. Yes. So, yeah. According to the book, translator should balance readability and acceptability by prioritizing meaning and communicative function, rather than rigidly preserving the source text form. In literary translations, such as novels, accuracy of meaning alone is not sufficient. If the accurate. The book suggests words and style to the norms of the target language, so that the translation reads smoothly for target readers. At the same time, cultural nuance and still paint. Therefore, a good literary translation is one that sounds natural and fluent while being the original message and aesthetic sense. Readability and acceptability are safe when the translation feels like an original text in the target language, not like a translated one. So that's all from me. Did you have any question, Ali?
Can you please repeat the conclusion?
So the conclusion is readability and acceptability are safe when the translator feels like an original text in the target language, not like a translated one.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. So Second, I will answer the Kiki question about. Wait a minute. So, the question from Kiki Melissa is according to the book, what factors most frequently cause difficulty in translation? Are these difficulties mainly caused by language differences or cultural differences? So, Kiki, according to the book, and culture. While language differences such as grammar and vocabulary can create challenges, the book emphasizes that cultural differences are often the main source or difficult. So, culture-specific terms, idiomatic expression, and different social norms are harder to translate accurately because they don't always have direct equivalent in the target language. Therefore, the book suggests that successful translation requires not only linguistic competence but also strong cultural understanding. So, let me give you the simple example. If you have already to watch Upin Ipin, you can see the scene of the part of Susanti come to the class and she introduced herself and she said she senang meet new friend and Fizi was like kita susahkan dia ke. So it's the example of different cultural understanding because in Indonesia senang it means happy, but in Malaya language senang it means mudah or easy. So that's the example of cultural understanding or culture context. Did you have any question, Kiki? Any instruction? Maybe not. Okay.
Okay, next I want to answer trivia question. So, she said that the book talks about translation evaluation, but can translation really be judged as good or bad, or does it depend on the reader's opinion? I think a translation can be judged as a good or bad, but not purely based on personal opinion. Jadi maksudnya kita tetap punya kriteria yang jelas untuk menilai terjemahan kayak accuracy, clarity, naturalness, dan apakah tujuan teksnya tercapai atau tidak. Jadi bukan cuma sekedar aku suka atau aku nggak suka. Jadi kalau terjemah akurat, maknanya itu tersampaikan dan terdengar natural di bahasa target, dan itu bisa dianggap good translation secara profesional. At the same time berpengaruh karena pembaca berbeda-beda dan latar belakangnya juga beda. Jadi ekspektasinya pun beda ya. Jadi ada unsur subjektif juga. So in my opinion, if you ask me, translation evaluation is both objective and subjective, and standar akademik dan profesional, tapi tetap ada ruang untuk impresi pembaca. Begitu kira-kira. Is it clear, Pete?
Thank you, Zara.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for the presenter that asked the questions. Now, is there any questions? Or we just have to end this agenda?
My name is Najwa Amalia from group. So, my question is, what challenge there is in translating cultural terms, and what strategies can be applied to preserve both meaning and cultural value? Thank you.
Thank you, Amel. And group 2, would you like to answer it directly or just give you some minutes?
Amalia. The answer is challenges in translating cultural terms is one, non-exact equivalent. Some cultural words do not exist in another language. Example, mudik or Thanksgiving. Two, different cultural meanings. One word may have a space in one culture but not in another. Sensitivity. Religious words can be have for emotional meaning. Some words have feelings or connotations, not just dictionary meaning. 5. Different social contexts. A word may be correct in meaning but wrong in social use. And the strategies to keep meaning and cultural values is 1. Borrowing. Keep the original word, example batik or sushi, to its explanation, explain the meaning in simple words. And functional equivalence, translate the function, not the exact words. And adaptation, change it into a similar cultural idea in the target language. And dynamic equivalent, focus on giving the same effect to the reader. Conclusion, translating cultural terms is difficult because language and culture are connected. A translator must understand both cultures and choose the best strategy to keep the meaning clear and respectful. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Cira.
Okay, I think there is no other question. Now would like to just end this agenda by reciting Hamdalah all together.
Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim.
Itu Randinya ada, Sarah.
Ada Randi kah? Oke, yaudah. SS ya Randi, karena nanti ada ini. Apa?
Iya.
Alif. Sudah Hamon nih berarti. Hai.
Kok panjangan dulu.